Good morning. Are you all ready? Okay, here's our song. Sing to Rory, celebrate Rory, see God's light in him. Sing to Charlotte, celebrate Charlotte, see God's light in her. Sing to you, celebrate you, see God's light in you. Sing to Nina, celebrate Nina, see God's light in her. Sing to Hunter, celebrate Hunter, see God's light in him. Sing to Bella, celebrate Bella, see God's light in her. Sing to all of us, celebrate all of us, see God's light in all of us. Sing to everyone, celebrate everyone, see God's light in everyone. And what do you think we're going to talk about today? You're right. It's the desert box. The desert where so many important stories happened. But remember, it gets very cold at night and very hot during the day, and there's hardly anything growing there. The winds blow, the desert changes, and it's a very kind of cold and lonely place at night and hot and lonely place during the day. And this is another story that took place in the desert. God's people were once very hungry. In fact, the children were laying down and crying on their beds because they were so hungry. So you know what God's people did? The parents and the children got up and they moved to another land, a land called Egypt. And there was food and there was work, but there was also a new king called a Pharaoh. And Pharaoh did not like God's people. He decided he was going to make God's people live where he wanted them to live, work where he wanted them to work, and not leave Egypt. He was going to control them. It was almost like they were slaves. And things were not good for God's people. So eventually, the people of God cried for help, and God sent them Moses. And Moses was told to go and talk to Pharaoh. Go to Pharaoh and say, let God's people go. So Moses went, and he talked to Pharaoh, and what do you think Pharaoh said? Pharaoh said, no. So Moses went back to God's people. But then terrible things started to happen to the people of Egypt. Strange numbers of frogs and other beings came around. There were strange diseases, and suddenly a disease came that killed the firstborn of all the people and all the animals, the firstborn son of everybody except God's people. God's people were safe. And finally, Moses went back to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said, yes, get out of here. Well, Moses had to hurry. He hurried back to his people because Pharaoh might change his mind. He said, we have to pack up, we have to go, and we have to leave the land of Egypt. But you know what was on the edge of the land of Egypt? There was a river. So Moses and his people came as close as they could to the river and the ocean, sometimes called the Red Sea. And they could hear, you know what? Pharaoh had done what they expected. He had sent his armies in back of them. How were they going to go any farther? There was a big sea here. So God talked to Moses. Moses talked to God. And God helped Moses to make the sea roll back. So there were just little puddles of water. And Moses and all of his people were able to get across the Red Sea. And you know what it did then? Then it rolled back. And Pharaoh and his armies could not get to God's people. They were finally free. And instead of laying down and crying, they were jumping around and dancing. And Miriam, Moses' sister, who was also a prophet, led the dancing. It was a wonderful time for God's people. They had a long journey yet to go, but they knew they were free. How do you think they felt? It was a very good time for God's people. Okay, we're going to look at our story and get our penny box and see who brought pennies today. Oh, Bella has a penny. Hunter has a penny. Nina has a penny. I'll bet you have a penny too. Yes, you do. And Charlotte and Rory all brought your pennies today. So what do we do next? We say our prayer and then we will go and have our snack. Okay, are you ready? Thank you for the world so sweet. Thank you for the food we eat. Thank you for the birds that sing. Thank you, God, for everything. And you'll have a coloring page today, and it's a picture of Moses with the sea rolled back on either side of him.